Amazon Prime's Rings of Power can't be called a success, like at all. How can this be when every other Lord of the Rings thing is huge and beloved? Is it really just isms and hate? Well, if you ask the studio, yes. Is it the acting, the writing, the characterization and the storytelling? If you ask the haters, yes. But what if it's something much deeper? What if there's disagreement over how to treat Tolkien's work because Tolkien was wrong about Tolkien? Now, before I get lynched, let me say I've been in the fellowship of Tolkien lovers since I was 10. There is no criticism of his work here. It's just my 30 years of work developing my own sci-fi for grown-ups, info below, has given me some new and unique insight. The whole isms argument went like this. We need to reflect the real world of today with all races and genders. But Tolkien hated allegory and created a myth instead. We have diversity quotas. This is a North European mythology. It's okay to be as white as Black Panther is black or Mulan is Chinese. You wouldn't insert other races into those. You're just ists and phobes. Ree! Battle lines drawn, studio and fans at war, $1 billion wasted, and scene. It all comes down to this word myth. You'll see it bandied about everywhere in this whole debate. Tolkien didn't just write some stories, he created a mythology. Or did he? If he did, this is a cultural work and shouldn't be messed with. If not, it's just a story and Amazon can interpret it any way they want, right? Whether fans like it or not, right? So did he? Well, no. A myth is one type of ancient story that's pretty well defined. A myth is symbolic, partly religious, of unknown origin, explains the origin of the culture that tells it, and is taken by that culture to be true in some sense. Tolkien saw his work as the origins of a long-lost English mythology because he thought we lacked one of our own, unlike, for instance, the Norse myths. But Middle-earth isn't England, and it never was, and it never led to England existing. It's on a different planet. It has different gods to Tolkien's own Catholicism. He'd have been excommunicated if he'd suggested his work as an actual, real mythology. But wait, before I get elvish hate in the comments, let me clarify. There's more than just myths in play here. That word gets used too much to mean too many things. You see, ancient cultures also had legends, defined as being also symbolic, also religious, also of unknown origin. Oh dear, this isn't sounding good. They don't explain the culture's origin, although they are also taken to be true by the culture that tells it. So Tolkien doesn't fit in that category either. But never fear, there's a third type of ancient cultural narrative, the folktale. Now these were never taken to be true by their culture, nor did they need to tell anything of their own culture's origin. They were just stories told within the culture. However, folktales can be of known authorship. They can have a known writer, like Homer or Hesiod or Tolkien. And just like the other two, they have a traditional value within the culture. They belong to the culture that tells them. And in a minute, the number one reason to class Tolkien's work as a folktale. But first, a caveat I need to deal with. See, Tolkien was obsessed with the real ancient history of us Brits and how we came to settle on this sceptred isle. See, Aragon came from Elendil in the story, but Elendil was Tolkien's rewrite of Ing. I don't know if that's anything to do with England, probably not, but there was a character, a real character, in the story of the Angles, or the English, and the story of the original migration from what is now Denmark. There's a lot of similarities to parts of the Silmarillion. According to those ancient, actual English myths, this Ing married a goddess, an immortal being, and founded the northern tribes. So there is a real mythology behind Tolkien's work, shown in the fact that he created several new languages based on or influenced by real ancient languages. And besides, terms like myth, legend, folklore, they're sort of interchangeable, right? I mean, in just researching this video and making sure all my I's are dotted and T's crossed, because I know what the fellowship's like, I've seen these terms being used synonymously. But there's an actual science to this, and according to the scholars and professors that existed in Tolkien's day, and who he probably knew personally, these categories are different, and every Tolkien fan should know it, because there's one final characteristic that separates them. Amazon and Tolkienites alike, listen up. A key facet of myths and legends is plasticity. They don't have definite details. Genesis has two different accounts of the creation right next to each other. Nobody cares. Ancient Egyptians told wildly conflicting stories of their gods, so did the Greeks. The literal details didn't matter, so contradictions weren't a problem. If the Tolkien canon is a myth, then Elendil can be gender swapped as much as he was adapted from the original Ing. Anyone can take any character at all, change any details, create new stories entirely, and they are staying faithful to the myth as long as it's set in the same world. Folktales don't have that. They're specific. They can have an author. They can convey an author's intent and have a defined story and canon, and can be protected by their culture as such. And so, if you're a Tolkien fan who doesn't like his work being messed with, or just a fan of powerful, deep storytelling, you should do two things. 1. Stop calling his work a myth, and use the more protectable category of folktale. 2. Follow me as I dive deep into the science of fiction, creating the 21st century's first true mythology, an open source storytelling project built on all of this research and so much more. Check out xuno.com and look at the socials, everything's linked below. And of course, please consider a cheeky like and a share, would be so helpful. So let me know your thoughts below, and I hope to see you again soon.